Hello, I'm Corey Allen, keyboard artist for Kurzweil Music. Welcome to the Mark 12 video tutorial. In this video, I'll be demonstrating the various features of the Mark 12. I'll show you how to call up sounds and how to use the automatic accompaniment feature, and even how to record your own songs. Along the way, I'll be pointing out special features we put into the Mark 12 which make it such a fun and enjoyable instrument to play. As we proceed in this video, you will notice a number in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. This number corresponds to the table of contents on the video jacket. This will make it easier for you to search the videotape for a specific section for review. At various points, you may want to stop the tape and explore things on your own. Don't be afraid to press any button on the Mark 12. You can't break anything. So let's get started. When you first turn on the Mark 12, it comes up in play mode, ready to play the main grand piano sound. On the right side of the front panel, you'll see the sound select area. There are 28 buttons for calling up basic sounds. There are 3 rows of 9 buttons, plus the grand piano button, which is separate. Press any button, it will light up and then call up that sound. If the sound is too soft or too loud, you can adjust it with the main volume slider. One great feature about the Mark 12 is that you can switch from sound to sound without cutting off the previous sound. For example, if I call up the string sound and play a chord and hold it down with the sustain pedal, then switch to the piano sound, any new notes that I play will be the piano sound and the strings will be sustained. For each sound category, there will be several related sounds which can be called up. You can choose one of these sounds by pressing the variation or use a variation button. When you press the button, it lights up and the display changes, showing you the variation sound. The Mark 12 remembers if you have chosen a variation for each category. For example, I'll call up keyboards and select the variation sound called Celeste. Now I can return to the grand piano category, which does not have the variation selected. If I go back to keyboards, notice that the variation button lights up and I'm back on the Celeste sound. There are more than 3 sounds in each category. A little later in the video, I'll be showing you how to call up these variation sounds, but for now, we'll move on to layering. You can layer any 2 sounds by holding the button of the first sound and pressing a second button. The display shows you the name of the 2 sounds. You'll recall that I mentioned that each sound category remembers if you've chosen a variation sound. This applies to layering as well. If you want to layer a sound with its variation, hold the main sound button and press the button to the immediate right. Now press the button under the layer sound in the display, then use the up and down buttons to scroll through the sounds. For example, if I want to layer vibes and steel drums from the mallets category, I hold down the mallets button and press synth leads. Now I press the button under synth flute, then press the down button to get to the steel drums. Often you will want to adjust the relative volumes of the 2 sounds. The easiest way to change the volumes is to hold the button of the first sound, then press your layer button repeatedly. Each time you press the button, the volume of the layered sound drops a small amount. The other way is to use the Layer Volumes button found in the Auto Accompaniment section. Notice that the display changes to show the volume levels for the main and layer sounds as well as the split sound, which we'll be talking about next. The three sliders above the Layer Volumes button can now be used to adjust the volumes. If I move the top slider, marked Layer, notice that the display reflects the volume change. If you press Layer Volumes again, the display returns to normal. Now we'll split the keyboard. Sometimes you'll want to have one sound in the left hand and another in the right. I want to create a piano and bass split. I'll call up the piano sound and press the acoustic bass button in the left split section. You can change the sound for either side of the split at any time by pressing the appropriate buttons. You can even have a layered sound for the right-hand split. You can choose where you want the split to be on the keyboard. This is called the split point. Press the two bottom buttons in the split section at the same time. The display changes and asks you to strike a key on the keyboard. Whatever note you strike will be the top note for the left-hand sound. In addition to the four bass sounds in this section, you can choose any two other sounds and assign them to the custom split buttons. To do this, hold the custom split button and choose the sound. This immediately assigns it to the left-hand split. Any other note or any other sound that you choose immediately goes to the right hand. You can change the split or main sounds from the display the same way we showed you when layering. Just press the button under the sound and then the up and down buttons to change the sounds. If you want to adjust the volume of the split sound, press Layer Volumes and move the slider marked Split. Let's look at the two buttons, the bottom buttons in the left split section. The first is called Left Sustain. Normally, you don't want the left hand sound to respond to sustain. For instance, if I have a piano and a bass split, I want to be able to use the sustain pedal for the piano without affecting the bass sound. Use the left sustain button if you do want the left hand to respond to the sustain. The Octave Shift button allows you to transpose each side of the split in octaves. When you press this button from the display shows you the transposition for each side. Press the button under the side you want to change and use the up and down buttons to transpose that side. If you have a layered sound, both of the sounds will be transposed. Now let's take a look at the reverb and effects section. This section has several features which can change the tonal quality of the sound. The treble and bass sliders allow you to boost or cut the treble and bass frequencies. Often the spot where you place your piano in a room, along with the materials found in that room, such as furniture or glass, can change the overall sound of the Mark 12. Using the sliders can help make the Mark 12 sound great in your room. We use reverb to enhance the sound and give that sense that you're playing the instrument in different types of rooms. You'll notice that the names of the reverb types describe room sizes. The Effects button lets you call up specific effects that can alter the sound. For instance, you may want to add rotary effect to an organ or a chorus to an electric piano. It's easy to change the reverb effects. Just press the buttons to select the ones you want. I'm going to play a drum sound and select different effects. Now I'm going to change to an electric piano sound and put a chorusing on it. And perhaps a rotary, an echo, and what we call special. Each sound in the Mark 12 has its own default effects and reverb settings, but you can select your own settings for each sound. The Mark 12 can remember each specific effect for each sound that you choose. So as you go from sound to sound, the effects that you want are called up. But if you press the Effects Hold button, then the current effect will stay up as long as you want and whenever you switch sounds. The SRS button turns on a sound re-enhancement that you won't find on any other digital piano. This special feature creates a surround sound type of effect you probably won't be able to hear on this video unless you have a stereo VCR running through a very good system. But when you're sitting at the Mark 12, the feature is really noticeable. You will find that this effect is more noticeable on some sounds than on others due to the way that this effect works. Now we'll look at the metronome. If you press this button found in the Recorder section, the Mark 12 gives you a steady clicking sound. You can set the tempo of the metronome using the up and down buttons when you're in the main play mode. You'll probably use this mostly when you're using the Recorder, but it's also a great tool for practicing purposes. Let's take a look at the Options section on the right side of the front panel. The Transpose up and down buttons allow you to transpose the whole keyboard in half-step increments. This can be especially useful when you're playing with a singer. If you have learned a song in one key, but it is too low or high for the singer, you can transpose up or down so that the Mark 12 plays in a good key for the singer. If you press both transpose buttons together, the Mark 12 will return to no transposition. The key touch allows you to customize how the keyboard responds to your playing. When you press this button, the display changes. Use the up and down buttons to change the type of touch, then press key touch again when you've selected the one that you want. What this does is change the way that the Mark 12 responds to how hard or soft you press the key. A harder key touch setting will require more effort to make the sound louder, while an easier setting will make it easier to play notes loudly. Now we'll take a look at other ways you can call up sounds and customize them for your own music. As I mentioned earlier, there are more than 3 types of sounds for each sound category. Here's how you can call up the other sounds. If you press the Synth Keys button to call up synthesized keyboard sounds, now you can press the Menu button on the side of the display. The Menu button allows you to access many extra features in different areas of the Mark 12. Notice that the display has changed. It now shows you 3 of the synth key sounds. If you press the button labeled Next, the display will show you 3 more sounds from this same category. You can press the Next button until you find the sound that you want. Once you find that sound, press the button under the name to call up that sound. Notice that the User Variation button is now lit. Whichever sound you choose from the menu becomes the user variation. Now, the next time you press the User Variation button, it will call up that sound. If you press any one of the other sound categories, the display will change to show the sounds in that category. For every category, you can choose what the User Variation button will call up. While you are in the menu mode, you can split the keyboard by pressing any one of the split buttons. You can also layer sounds in this menu mode, but the display shows the name of the main sound, not the layered sound. The menu button works in other areas besides the sound section. To make things easy to use, you will see that no matter where you go, changing things in the menu mode consistently works the same way. For example, now that we have the menu mode turned on, if I press the reverb button, the display changes to give me the options for reverb. The three component parts of the reverb here on the screen are called parameters, and you can edit them. The first parameter, type, states the name of the reverb. The second parameter, flavor, gives you some of the basic variations of that type. And the last parameter is wet and dry mix, and it indicates the amount of reverb in percent. Pressing the button under any parameter and using the up and down buttons allows you to change the value for that parameter. So if I press the button under flavor, I can change from symphony to subwave. Then I can press the button under wet and dry mix and increase or decrease the amount of the effect. The Mark 12 remembers all of the parameters for every single sound so that you can customize every single sound and have the effect that you like. If I press the menu button again, then I can return to the basic play mode. When you press menu, the Mark 12 goes to the menu for whatever button you previously pressed. So if I press effects, then menu, you will see the Mark 12 display a menu for choosing those effects. Notice that it looks just like the reverb menu, but the types and flavors are different. Now we'll move on to one of the most unique and exciting features of the Mark 12, one which gives you the ability to create your own organ sounds. Press the button marked Edit Drawbars. Now you're in a special mode where you can create specific organ stops just like on a real Hammond organ. For those of you familiar with the Hammond organ, you know that there are 9 drawbars, each of which is tuned to a different harmonic. As you pull out each drawbar, it increases the volume for that harmonic, allowing you to change the timbre of the organ sound. You can have up to 6 different organ settings in the Mark 12 at a time. We have already put in 6 different organ presets. To create your own organ sound, you'll have to overwrite one of our presets. But don't worry about losing anything. The factory sounds are burned into memory. You can make your own organ sounds and save them to disk. If you decide to delete them, the original presets will reappear. When you press the Edit Drawbar button, the display changes to show you which organ preset number you are editing. You can scroll to the preset that you want to edit by pressing up and down arrow. We've recreated the 9 drawbars using the 9 columns of the buttons in the Sound Select section. These are the standard labels for drawbars and indicate the organ stop. When you press a button in a column, it's just like pulling out the drawbar. For example, I will press the bottom button in the 16-foot column. Notice that all 4 buttons in that column light up. It's just like pulling the drawbar all the way out. Now I'll press the second button down in the 8-foot column. The top button and the second button lights up. This is just like pulling the drawbar halfway out. You can continue in this manner, setting each drawbar to 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, or full. If you want to turn a drawbar off, press the top button in the column. That drawbar will be set to 1/4. If you press the button a second time, the light will go off and the stop will be turned off. There are several other settings for the organ. Notice that the Edit Drawbars button is labeled in gray. Many of the buttons in the Sound, Select, and Options sections also have gray labels underneath them. When you are in Edit Drawbars mode, these buttons are used to create your organ sound. For instance, the Variation button is the key click and will turn the key click function on and off. If you look in the Options section, you will see buttons which relate to percussion, the percussion effect. Percussion is an extra partial which plays staccato, giving you a brief accent when you press the key. First, use the bottom two buttons to turn the percussion on and off. When percussion is on, then the other three pairs of buttons let you choose the second and third harmonic, the volume for the percussion, and how short the decay of the percussion will be. Once you have the organ sounding the way you want it, you can give it a name. Press the button under Name in the display. The display changes to show you a cursor. Notice that the buttons in the Sound section have letters or numbers to their left. Press a button to enter that letter or number. The button marked SP will insert a space. The button marked SH will allow you to shift between upper and lower case. The two buttons under the arrows in the display allow you to move the cursor to the right or to the left. Once you have named your organ sound, press OK and return to the main screen. If you press Edit Drawbars again, you will leave the edit mode and your changes will be automatically saved. I'm going to name this Corey. And Y. And we'll hit OK. And there it is. The other two options in Edit Drawbars mode are Restore and Delete. If you have made any changes while you're in the Edit Drawbar mode and decide you don't like those changes, press Restore, then OK, and the settings will go back to where they were. But once you've saved by exiting the Edit Drawbars, then the changes are permanent and you can't restore to the previous settings. If you press Delete and then OK, the Mark 12 will return to the default setting. Well, that wraps up the section on playing the various sounds in the Mark 12. Before we move on, you might want to stop the tape and spend some time exploring the sounds, making your own organ sounds, and just having some fun with your keyboard. Let's take a look at the automatic accompaniment features in the Mark 12. With it, you can create complete songs on the spur of the moment, providing a background arrangement while you play the melody. To use the auto accompaniment, first turn it on using the on and off buttons in the Style section. You should also turn Chord Reader button in the auto accompaniment section on. We'll talk more about this button later. At this point, you can select an accompaniment style from one of 13 buttons. There are 12 categories of musical styles, and a button for selecting styles you can load from the disk or create yourself. Let's choose Jazz. The display now shows Combo Swing. The keyboard is automatically split. The left side of the split is silent and is dedicated to creating an accompaniment based on the chord you play. To begin the accompaniment, I'll play a C7 for my first chord. Now just press the Start button to start the arrangement. To stop the arrangement, press the button again. An accompaniment consists of 5 parts: bass, drums, and 3 other parts which will be different depending upon the style that you choose. In the right hand, I can play a melody or solo. I'm going to play a C7 chord and start the arrangement. There is a default melody sound for each style, but you can change it to a different sound just by selecting one from the sound section. You can move the split point on the keyboard, separating the melody from the accompaniment by using the 2 split point buttons, just like we did when we created split sounds. Each of the style categories has several different styles. To choose these styles, select a style category and press the menu button. Just like with selecting sounds, the display changes to show you the different styles. Use the Next button to see more styles. Once you find the style you want, press the button under it to select it. Just like with sounds, each category will remember the style you chose. Press the menu button again to exit the menu mode. Let's take a look at the bottom row of buttons in the Style section. These buttons let you create entire songs. There is an intro, an ending, and a variation in each style. There are also 2 buttons marked Fill, which are used to create transitions from the main pattern to the variation pattern. Let's try creating a whole song using these buttons. First, I'll select the salsa style from the Latin category. Next, I'll press the intro button and play an initial chord on the keyboard. Notice that the intro button blinks. When I press start, the song will begin. Watch as I press the different buttons to create my arrangement. Now I'll do a fill to the variation. Now I'm going to hit a break button and watch what happens. Now I want to go back to the original groove. I'll play a fill. Now I want to end it. Did you hear the spot where all of the accompaniment stopped and I played the melody by itself? That was done by using the break button. It stops the accompaniment from the moment you press the button until the beginning of the next bar. The next set of buttons gives you a few more features for creating your song. The count-off button gives you a count-off before the music starts. This is an especially useful feature when you're playing with someone else. It helps everyone to start at the same time. The default for the count-off is 1 bar, but it can be changed in the Preferences section of the Mark 12. Consult your manual for this. If you press the Fade button before you start a style, then the volume will gradually increase. If you press the button while the style is playing, then it will fade out. The slower and faster buttons change the tempo gradually. When you press the button, it begins changing and will continue until you press the button again. While I'm talking about tempo, I should mention that each style has its own preset tempo, but while you are playing, you can switch from style to style and the tempo won't change. Now let's look at the buttons in the auto accompaniment section. These give you many more options for creating your songs. First, let's look at the chord reader and chord hold buttons. The chord reader must be turned on for the Mark 12 to create an accompaniment based on the chords you play in your left hand. If you turn it off, then you will only hear the drums. Chord reader's right there. Now when I turn it off, all you hear is the drums. You will notice that the keyboard is no longer split. You can play the melody sound across the entire keyboard. This can be a lot of fun. You can choose a style and use just the drum part as a metronome for practicing. It's a lot more fun than just a simple tick, tick, tick. Etc., etc. When chord hold is on, you can take your fingers off the keyboard and the accompaniment will keep playing until you play the next chord. If you turn chord hold off, when you let go of the keys, just the drums remain. I'll start my style with the chord hold on. And this will still play with my hands off. Now if I turn the chord hold off, you just get the drums. But when I play, the Anyone Can Play button is a lot of fun. If you are someone who is still learning how to play and have trouble finding the right notes, this button will open up a whole new world. Just turn it on and play a chord in your left hand, and your right hand will always play the right notes. Remember that there are 5 parts for each style. Notice there are buttons marked bass, drums, and backgrounds A, B, and C. By pressing these buttons, you can mute the different parts, allowing you to change the instruments and the arrangement sound. You also have sliders to control the volumes of the bass, drums, and the background parts. Now we'll take out the bass part, or we'll just start with the drum part and add a bass part. Now instead of the other things going on, say you just want a little trio. Background B is the guitar part, bass and drums. Or maybe you just want bass and guitar. But we need that a little softer. We're going to lower the bass part or lower the background part. You can turn key start on, then the Mark 12 won't start playing until you strike a key. Press start, the button starts blinking. Once I touch a key, the accompaniment begins. If I have key start on and I press intro, then the song begins with the intro when I press a note. If you turn on key stop, the entire accompaniment will stop when you take your hands off the keyboard. This overrides the chord hold button. The difference between this button and the chord hold is that drums stop along with everything else. This allows you to stop the song without having to press the stop button. The full keyboard button changes the way the Mark 12 plays when the chord reader is on. When it is off, the left side of the keyboard is muted and used for automatic accompaniment, while the right side plays the melody. When you turn it on, the melody sound plays across the entire keyboard. You can choose how the Mark 12 recognizes the chords you're playing. We will talk more about this in the next section. The harmony button is another fun feature that can add a lot to your playing. When you turn it on, the Mark 12 automatically adds a harmony line to your melody. The harmony note is chosen based on the chords you're playing. If the auto setup button is on, it selects melody sound, reverb, and effect for each style. If it is off, then when you change styles, the Mark 12 will stay on whatever melody sound and effects you've currently called up. If you want to change the default melody sound and effects that are stored with each style, you need to copy the style into one of the user style locations, then use the style editor to change the auto setup parameters. Consult your manual for more information on this. Just as we saw in the other sections, there are some buttons in Auto Accompaniment section that have extra features accessed from the menu mode. Press Menu and then Chord Reader. This lets you choose one of the chord recognition modes. The default is Advanced. In this mode, the Mark 12 will recognize standard chords played in either root position or in inversion. This is a good method to choose if you are familiar with playing basic chord types. But if you are not very familiar with chords, try using the basic method. In this mode, you can create chords with 1, 2, or 3 fingers. If you press just one note, the Mark 12 plays a major chord with that note as its root. If you play a C, the Mark 12 plays a C major chord. If you play a C and any white note below it, the Mark 12 plays a dominant 7th chord. Playing a C and any black note below it creates a C minor chord. Finally, playing a C with any combination of black and white notes below it creates a C minor 7th chord. The chord inversion method is similar to the advanced method. It expects you to play a complete chord. It uses the lowest note as the bass note. For example, if I play a C chord with a G on the bottom, the bass will play a G instead of a C bass note. If you press the harmony button while in the menu mode, you have a choice of different chord voicings for the harmony. Once again, you can scroll through the choices using the Next button, then choose the one you want by pushing the button underneath the name. Try experimenting with these different harmony types to hear how they sound. Pressing Anyone Can Play while in the menu mode gives you a choice of 3 different methods. Try each one to hear the differences. Consult your manual for more information. If you press Full Keyboard while in the menu mode, you will be given 3 choices. Remember that when full keyboard is off, the left side of the keyboard is muted but used for auto accompaniment. But when it is on, you can play the melody sound across the entire keyboard. In this menu, you decide what part of the keyboard will recognize the chords you play. If it is set to full keyboard, then every note you play, including the melody notes, will help determine the chord. If it is set to the left side, then only the notes below the split point will be used. And of course, if it is set to the right side, then only the notes to the right of the split will be used. The last button in this section is the arpeggiator. An arpeggiator will take notes of a chord and play them one at a time. There are many ways that you can use an arpeggiator. First, let's turn the styles off. Now press the arpeggiator button and play a chord on the keyboard. By playing different chords, you can make many different interesting arpeggio patterns. The tempo for the arpeggio is determined by the tempo in the display, which you can change by using the up and down buttons. Now turn the styles back on again. The arpeggiator will be triggered by your right hand, while your left hand is used for auto accompaniment. If you turn on harmony while the arpeggiator is on, then you get arpeggiated chords. The arpeggiator can create many different types of arpeggios. Press Menu, then Arpeggiator, and look at the display and scroll through the different parameters for the arpeggiator. We don't have time to demonstrate all these parameters, but I'll show you a couple. The order parameter changes the way the notes are arpeggiated. You can go up, down, up and down, or one of several other choices. You can even choose random. The beats parameter changes the speed of the arpeggio based on note values. For instance, I can choose 16th notes, 8th note triplets, 8th notes, etc. You will want to consult your manual for a description of all the arpeggiator parameters. It's very versatile and can be used creatively in many different ways. Well, that brings us to the end of this section. Once again, we recommend that you stop the tape and experiment with the style and auto accompaniment features so that you're very comfortable with them. As you work with the auto accompaniment section, you'll discover certain combinations of settings that you like to use. For instance, when you're playing a salsa style, you might want to have the flute for your melody and set the reverb to a room setting with a wet and dry mix of 40%. To make it easier for you to have everything the way you want it, the Mark 12 has what we call panel memories. You can have 9 panel memories in the Mark 12 at a time. For each panel memory, you can select the style, melody sound, reverb and effects settings, tempo, and octave shift. It also remembers if you split the keyboard or layered the melody sound. A list of all the parameters saved in panel memories can be found in your manual. It's easy to store your settings. First, set everything the way you want it. Then press the Panel Save button in the Options section. Now press one of the 9 panel memory buttons in the bottom row of the sound section. Calling up a panel memory is even easier. Just press the appropriate button and the Mark 12 immediately calls up those settings. Now we'll talk about the Recorder section. The Recorder section allows you to record your own songs or playback songs that you've loaded from disk. Another name for the recorder is a sequencer. It is important to understand how a sequencer works. It does not record sound like a tape recorder. Instead, it records what you did, the notes you played, when you stepped on a pedal, etc. When you play back a song on the Mark 12, it sends the same message you made when you recorded the song. You can have up to 16 songs in the Mark 12 at one time. Each song is made up of 16 tracks. You can assign a different sound to each track. You can also record the auto accompaniment if you want. For our first example, we'll record a simple song without auto accompaniment, so make sure that the Styles section is turned off. Next, turn on the recorder with the on and off button in the recorder section. Now press record. The Edit Song button lights up and the Record button blinks. The first empty track button will also blink. Since I haven't recorded any tracks yet, track 1 is blinking. Now I'll choose the sound I want for my first track. I'm going to use 12-string guitar. I'm also going to turn the Key Start button on. This way, the recording won't begin until I play a note. Now I press play, and it blinks as well. Without Key Start on, the moment I pressed play, the recording would have begun. To hear what I've recorded, I'll press play. Since Key Start is still on, the button blinks. Once I strike a note, the Mark 12 will play the track. You can use the fast forward and rewind buttons just like you would on a tape recorder, allowing you to start the song at different measures. Now let's record a second track. Hit record again, and notice that track 1 button stays lit, indicating that something has already been recorded on it. And track 2 is blinking. For this second track, I'll choose the flute sound. As I record this track, I'll hear the first track playing along. I press play, and I'm ready to begin to record the next track. Notice that I made a mistake while the recording of the second track was going on. I want to record that track again. When I press record again, track 3 lights up. But this time, I want to record track 2 again. So I press track 2, and this will erase anything that was previously recorded on that track. Now let's record a second song. Hit the Song Edit button and turn it off. When the Song Edit button is off, these buttons are used to select songs. Notice that the first button is lit, showing that a song exists in that location. I will press the Song 2 button to record my next song. This time I'm going to record a song using the automatic accompaniment. Since the automatic accompaniment is a special feature that plays up to 5 different parts, it must always be recorded on track 1. First, I turn on the styles and select the style I want. In this case, Bossa Nova. Now I press record. Next, I press Intro and the Start button in the Style section. Finally, I hit play. Since the Key Start is still turned on, the Mark 12 waits until I strike a key. Now I'm going to use the buttons from the Style section and play chords with my left hand to create basic tracks for my song. I could have also played the melody while I was recording this track, but instead I've chosen to record the melody on a different track. That way, if I make a mistake or want to change things, I only have to replay the melody. Now I'll record my melody on track 2. I'll choose flute sound for my melody. This time I'm not going to start recording at the beginning, since the automatic accompaniment created an intro. So I'll turn off key start. Now I'll press record, and when I press play, the song will start recording, and I'll come in at the appropriate point. This time I liked what I played at the beginning, but I didn't like what I played at the end. So instead of recording from the beginning, I'm going to use a technique called punch-in to record over only the part that I didn't like. In my case, I want to start my punch at bar 9. Now I press punch-in and it blinks. Notice that the button for track 2 also blinks, since it was the last track I recorded. When I press play, the song will start playing. Then I will press punch in again at the point I want to start recording my new section. Once you have finished the section you want to record over, if you press the punch button again, it will punch out, stopping the recording but continuing to play the track, or you can just press stop. You can also use key start when using the punch-in feature. In that case, the first time you strike a key, it starts playback, and the second time you strike the key, it begins recording. We'll record one more song to show off other features in the recorder section. So, turn off the Song Edit button and select Song 3. We're going to use the loop recording feature to make our own drum pattern. We'll be using the metronome so that we can record to a beat. First, we'll set the tempo. You can do this by using the up and down buttons to change the tempo in the display. If you know the feel that you want, but you don't know the exact tempo, there's another way to set the tempo. Press Set Tempo. Now strike notes repeatedly on the keyboard in the tempo you want. You can keep striking these keys until you have the tempo you want, then press Set Tempo again. and the tempo you played last will now be selected. Now press Loop. Loop recording makes the track repeat a specified number of beats. Each time it repeats itself, whatever you play is added to whatever you played previously. This is a great way to record drum patterns. You can play each drum one at a time and build up the pattern. Notice the track 2 button is blinking. You can't loop record on track 1 since it has been designed for recording the automatic accompaniments. The display shows you the number of beats for the loop. I want to record a 2-bar loop in 4/4 time. That's 8 beats. I set the number of beats using the up and down buttons. I'll press the menu button and select real drums for my sound. Now I'll turn on the metronome. That'll click at the tempo that I just set. Once I press play, the Mark 12 starts recording, and I'll play my drums one at a time. That's the bass drum. Now I'll play a snare drum part. Now I'll put a hi-hat part in. That was a closed hi-hat. That's an open hi-hat. Now when I play back the sequence, you can hear the entire pattern. This is a good time to talk about the quantize function. Sometimes when you play things into the recorder, you might play the notes without rhythmic accuracy. The quantize function allows you to move the notes forwards and backwards in time so that they line up rhythmically. To quantize your track, press Menu, then Song Edit twice. With the Song Edit button lit, the display will show you track editing features. Select Quantize. I can set the track I want to quantize. Since I just recorded track 2, I'll select that track by pressing the track 2 button. I can set the fraction of the beat I want to quantize to, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, etc. I'll set it to 16th notes. Then press Quantize. The Mark 12 moves each note to the nearest 16th note. It'll ask me if I'm sure that I want to do this. It's been quantized. Now if I play the part, you can hear that all the notes line up on the beat. You should be aware that once you quantize a track, you can't change it. You can't go back to the way it originally sounded. So make sure that when you set the quantize properly before you quantize your track. Let's look at the other features in the menu mode. Press Merge. This allows you to take information from 2 tracks and combine it onto a single track. If you press Edit, you can scroll through a series of parameters that affect the track. The first is sound. Use this to change the sound for the track. As always, you press the button under the parameter to select it, and then use the up and down buttons to change. Press Next, and you'll see volume. As you start to create multiple tracks for your sequence, you'll find that you want to control the volume of each track so that it blends with the other tracks. Pan allows you to choose a pan position from left to right, with 0 at far left and 50 in the middle and 100 at the far right. For details on these and other track edit parameters, consult your manual. If I turn off the Song Edit button while in the menu mode, you will see a few other parameters that apply to the entire song instead of just one track at a time. You can name the song, just like you name the organ preset. You can copy part of the song or delete it. You can set the time signature. The default setting is 4/4. If you want to record a song in a different time signature, you should change this before starting to record your song. You can also edit the initial tempo. You can transpose the entire song to a new key. This works just like transposing the keyboard with the transpose buttons, but it affects just this song. Phrase repeat allows you to select a portion of your song and have it repeat over and over again. This is especially useful when you're trying to practice a specific part before recording it. You can also set the reverbs and effects for the song. Well, that wraps up this section for the recorder. You may want to review this information and spend some time recording a few songs that you're comfortable with. The Mark 12 has a disk drive, which allows you to save songs, organ settings, and panel memories. You can also use the disk drive to load in songs from other sources, such as standard MIDI files or disks from other keyboard formats. The 6 disk functions are accessed by pressing the disk button. The first 3 are play, load, and save. Play allows you to play a song directly from disk without having to load it into memory. Kurzweil is unique in the music industry in that we can read discs from several manufacturers, including Yamaha Disc Clavier, Piano Disc, Piano Soft, as well as discs from Hal Leonard and Warner Brothers publications. To play a song from disk, insert a disc into the disk drive, then press the button under play. The display changes to give you 2 options, Play 1 and Play All. Play 1 lets you play a single song from disk, while Play All will play all of the songs on that disk. For now, we'll press Play 1. Now the display changes to show you the directory of songs on the disk. You can scroll through the list of songs using the up and down buttons. When you find a song that you want, press play and the Mark 12 will begin playing the song. You can stop playing at any time by pressing the stop button. We'll just play the first song. If you select Play All, then you have 2 choices. Normal will play the songs in order. Shuffle will play the songs, but in a random order. If the song you are playing is from a general MIDI disc, you may need to turn the general MIDI on. We'll show you how to do this a little bit later in the video. If you want to make changes to a song that has been saved to disk, then you will need to load it into the Mark 12's internal memory. After pressing disk, press load. The display asks what type of file you want to load. Press song. The display now changes to allow you to choose which song you want from the disk and which song location you want the Mark 12 to load into. You can choose the song's location in the sequencer by pressing the Song button in the Recorder section. Or you can press the button under Song Number in the display and use the up and down buttons. Then press the button under Name and use the up and down buttons to scroll through the songs on the disc. Once you have chosen the song you want, press OK, and then the song will load. In addition to loading songs, there are other types of files you can load, like new styles or new sounds. Once loaded in, the new styles will be found by pressing the User Disk button in the Style section. New sounds will be found by pressing the Soundbite button of the Sound section. You can also load in organ settings and panel memories. It is always a good idea to save everything you create to disk, whether it's a song, an organ setting, or a panel memory. That way, if you have to reset the Mark 12 for some reason, you haven't lost your work. You can load it back in from disk. The Mark 12 uses standard DOS formatted disks. So if you have a disk that has already been formatted for DOS, you can go directly to the Save function. Blank disks need to be formatted. To do this, press the Next button after pressing Disk. Let me put in, I'll put in a disk here. This is a blank disk. Now press the button under Format and press OK. That will start the process of formatting the disk. You still need to choose the type of disk that you're formatting, either high density or double density. In this case, we'll use high density. It'll ask you yes or no. Are you sure? You should always format the disk for the correct density. Once the disk is formatted, press Disk and then press the button under Save. You can choose what you want to save. I'll save a song. Now choose the particular song that you want to save. You select the song by pressing the up and down buttons. The Mark 12 automatically creates a name based on the name you've given the song. Sometimes during the process of saving, the Mark 12 may change the name somewhat. If you don't like the name that the Mark 12 creates, you can press the Rename button to change it. Otherwise, just press Save. Now the display asks which format you want to save. You can save it as a Kurzweil format or in either of the two standard MIDI file formats. We recommend that you save in Kurzweil format unless you intend to load your song into a different sequencer. In that case, you should choose either type 0 or type 1, depending on the requirements of your sequencer. If there's a song with the same name already on the disk, then you will be asked if you want to replace that song or choose a new name for your current song. Once you've saved your songs, make sure you store your disk in a dry place away from magnets, which could accidentally erase them. Stereo speakers contain magnets, so be sure not to place your disks on top of a cabinet. There are two more options in disk mode: Rename, which lets you change the name of the files on your disk, and Delete, which will delete specific files. Consult your manual if you have any questions about these options. The Mark 12 is also a very powerful educational tool. We've included a number of educational games specifically designed to improve listening skills. The EduGames button, found in the Options section, calls up a series of games which are not only a lot of fun, they'll help you correctly identify chords and melodies. The first game is a kind of follow-the-leader game called Single Note Copycat. The Mark 12 plays a series of notes, and you have to play them back. It starts out with only one note and keeps adding more notes one at a time. The game can be played by musicians of all levels because you have the ability to set the level of difficulty for several different parameters, including speed, range, and the types of notes. You can even set it to play a familiar tune. Check your manual for details on the parameters that you can set. But here's an example. I'll hit the play button, and it played, and I'll play that one. Now, I'm going to make a mistake. Another game is called Chord Copycat. This is similar to the single note copycat, but the Mark 12 will play chords instead of individual notes. Once again, you have the ability to customize it for several different levels of difficulty. Another thing you will find under EduGames is the chord dictionary. This isn't actually a game, but instead a very useful reference tool. If you have ever looked at a piece of sheet music and seen a chord symbol that you didn't know how to play, the chord dictionary can help. You simply scroll to the key and the type of chord. The Mark 12 will show you the notes in that chord and how to play it. If you press the MIDI Preferences button in the Options section, the Mark 12 will go to a special menu mode. You have three choices. If you select MIDI, you can scroll through a series of parameters which affect how the Mark 12 sends and receives MIDI information. You should consult your manual for a description of all of these parameters, but I will point out a couple of them. Program Change Mode can be set to General MIDI if you want the Mark 12 to function as a general MIDI instrument. This will limit you to only certain sounds which are part of the general MIDI sound set. In addition, certain other functions will be set. For example, Channel 10 will be reserved for drums. Another useful parameter is local control. You would probably turn this off if you have your Mark 12 hooked up to an external sequencer for recording your own songs instead of using the Mark 12 recorder section. If you want to send MIDI data from the Mark 12's recorder to other MIDI devices, you will need to turn the Transmit Sequencer Data parameter on. To exit from the MIDI parameters, you need to press the MIDI Preferences button again. Now press it one more time to get back to the original display, and this time choose Preferences. Here you'll find parameters that affect specific functions of the Mark 12. Again, you'll want to consult your manual to get a complete description, but here are a couple of useful parameters. The tuning parameter is helpful if you're playing with other instruments. You will find parameters that allow you to set the function for each of the pedals. In addition to their default settings, you can use them to start and stop styles, or the recorder, control the arpeggiator, or several other options. If you change any of the preference parameters and want the Mark 12 to always use your new settings, set the Remember Preferences parameter to On. Otherwise, they are reset to their defaults on power-up. The final option you see when you first select the MIDI Preferences button is Reset. If you choose this and press OK, the memory of the Mark 12 will be completely erased and all settings return to their defaults. So be careful if you choose this option. You may want to save everything to a disk as a backup before doing this. Well, that wraps up this video tutorial. I hope this video has made you more familiar with the basic features of the Mark 12. And don't forget to consult your manual for other information not covered in this video. As you experiment with the great sounds and features of the Mark 12, I'm sure you'll find that it will keep up with your musical imagination. For Kurzweil Music Systems, I'm Corey Allen. Remember, above all, have fun making music.